Hello, hello. So for some reason, my camera is purple.
So there's actually a lot that I forgot to commentate over. So with this one, I'm just changing the BPM, making it something that is kind of groovy, kind of nice to listen to, kind of like slow and smooth, somewhere between like, 120 and 130 is kind of like the sweet spot for some really chill stuff.
So normally what I like to do is I like to just kind of like get a bunch of kicks, a bunch of snares, a bunch of, other instruments.
So after painstakingly finding some really good samples and stuff to use, I like to kind of pile them up, get a bunch of kicks, get a bunch of snares, like I said. And what I'll do is I will take the pattern and I'll move it up. That way, the way that it's laid out is it'll play another kick and it'll play another snare. So it's basically like another loop that I can make. And so I do this to kind of like test out different styles of beats, different styles of drums and things like that. Once you're satisfied with like the kick and snare, you move on to the tops.
In beat making, there's sometimes you want to have constants. Like for example, this open hi-hat right here, it's gonna be a constant. It's always gonna be on the second beat, always. Same with these two down here. It's gonna always go dit dit. Okay, it's always gonna start with dit dit. Okay? All right. Sometimes you gotta a throw in a little curveball. Do some triplets. Okay. Boom. Okay. And watch this to fill things out. Boom. Boom. Some little shakers. You want to be barely heard.
So right now, I'm just kind of satisfied with what I've made so far. And then I'm moving on to some sidechain. I use Shaperbox for sidechain. I just have it triggered by the MIDI and it's targeting all the groups.
All right. Sidechain lessons. So this is sidechain. Do you hear that? Do you hear that clicking? It's because the attack is not quick enough. So usually to fix that, I use Shaperbox. Fix that. Boom. Push it to the start. Now, when making beats is different than making like dance music because with dance music, you want that pump, you want all of it to be sidechained pretty heavily, especially with like house music and like dubstep and stuff. When it comes to making beats, I like to um let my high end, you know, come through. Um, Another sidechain tip is that um you want the low end to come back the slowest, the mids to come back kind of, in the middle ground. And you want the high to come back pretty quickly. And like I said, I like to let my high end kind of peek through a little bit. Now, there's some leveling issues right now. Um, yeah, with the high end that I'll fix.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm just putting a glue compressor on top of the drums just to kind of glue things together, as it's called. It just levels things out. What I like to do is I like to have the threshold down to where the little meter is going up to the 5 decibels, and then you turn the makeup gain up 5 to kind of even things out, and make sure you have the soft clipping on. I like to have the attack all the way down, and just kind of mess with your preference. So right now what I'm doing is just kind of a little mixing trick, quote unquote. But I'm just going through each individual instrument and panning the hi-hats to make it kind of sound more wide. And I'm also cutting the lows off of the highs because you don't need that for a high end. So what I've done, I've just dragged in an 808 sample into Serum 2, and I changed the wavetable setting to sampler, so that way I can have it crossfade, and instead of having the 808 just be like one note that kind of fades off, I can make it loop back and forth to where it'll sustain for as long as I want it to. So right now I'm just kind of scrolling through this free retro synth that I got a long time ago. It's called an FB7999, and I really like it. It's got a pretty big library. It's modular, you know. If I ever want kind of a retro sound, this is kind of my go-to. And so now I'm just kind of figuring out what synths I want to layer together and coming up with something nice. And finally, the last thing I like to do when making a beat is I like to select everything and pitch it up and down a few semitones just to see, you know, the range that I have and see if it sounds good in a different key.